Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our initiative Mission Mains 2022, where we're discussing the most expected questions from the point of view of Mains 2022. So, today being Wednesday, we are taking up geography and environment. Okay. Now, before going forward, we also have a program of essay guidance, so personal guidance program for the essay. And if you are interested, you can mention it in the comment section or reach out to me on my WhatsApp. There is also a Google form link in the description box. So these are the things that we're taking up. So one is the issue of the solid waste. So very, very important. So be it, let them call it solid fill, solid waste, or let them call it landfills. Now, besides this, there is the theme of the e-waste. So that is also very, very important. Then there could be a combination like we need, we are focusing on this national solar mission, and eventually all these solar panels would eventually turn waste. So a national solar waste management policy. So something to that effect was also there in the news. Fine. 2-3 days back, I had talked about that a question could be asked on the National Clean Air Program. So we already have a question, but I wanted to show as to how, UPSC is framing question. Like this, there is already a question that has been asked on the Jal Shakti Abhiyan. So there are typical 3-4 themes which can be taken up. National Clean Air Program can also be linked with the air pollution program and what measures are taken or what are the features of the NCAP. So in that combination also it can ask you. So we need to cover this. Then environment impact assessment. So environment impact assessment, same question is there as past year. Only thing is I'm talking about the hydroelectric projects. So hydro projects, especially in the Himalayan region, a lot of these disasters have taken place. A lot of this, because of the glacial flash floods or glacial floods. So the hydro projects have gone bad because of that. So let's do it from this perspective. Now, besides environment impact assessment, a probable theme could be social impact assessment. So that could also be same. Now explain the factors responsible for the origin of ocean currents. So GS1 purely geography. So ocean currents and what are the factors that influence it. Okay. Now I was into doubt. There is this theme of the recent heat wave. The heat wave that took place on March ended and we had extreme summer going on. So very cold winters and then summers. So what are the reasons for the intensified heat wave that was witnessed in the early part of this year? So explain the reasons, geographical reasons. So from geography point of view, we have to write. Okay, so this is important, and wherever all these UPSC type websites, I'm only getting it from the disaster management point of view. Disaster mitigation, what has to be done, so that I expect content is already there. So here from GS1 geography point of view. Okay, let's come to the first question. What are the impediments in disposing of the huge quantities of discarded solid wastes which are continuously being generated? Now let us just highlight the few important things. Impediments, that are what are the obstacles in disposing of these huge quantities of this discarded solid waste, and which are continuously being generated. Somewhere it is a hint about consumption, so that is also to be checked. How do we remove safely the toxic wastes? Bio waste, e-waste, right? So toxic waste. So within solid waste, there are toxic waste. So how do we remove them that have been accumulating in our habitable environment? Okay. You know what? Suddenly this thing came to my mind that even plastic is an important subject matter besides landfill because of the single-use plastic, the ban thing that was there in the news. Okay, so this is a very straightforward question. So we will start our answer by first talking about the huge quantities of discarded solid waste. So we will start with a fact which highlights that how severe this problem is. Then we will mention the impediments. right? Impediments, what are the shortcomings in the solid waste management system? And then, as the question is asking, we will say, with reference to the solid toxic waste to removal, we will give out the measures. So here is the facts. This is the commonly used fact that in almost every article, that there is about 960 million tons of solid waste that is being generated via various activities. Of this, the breakup has been given. Okay, so we get the fact. Now, what are the impediments? Why do we have this landfills and landfill after landfills? More and more of landfills are coming up. What are the reasons for it? One is that our waste management is very, very weak. Most of the waste management that is taking place, solid waste management, it is being taken place by the informal sector. Informal sector would mean lack of regulation, lack of training, lack of emphasis on safety. So informal sector. Then lack of accountability with reference to the waste management practices. I have seen myself that there was the segregation thing, so we have to segregate the waste, those rules are there. But ultimately, when it is dumped, it is collectively put, or at the bigger site, it is collectively put, or it is being disposed of any open area. So there is lack of accountability of the government, accountability of different stakeholders when it comes to the issue of waste management. Then government is not supporting it enough. There is limited budgetary support. There is for proper waste collection, storage, treatment, and disposal. Then there is limited environment awareness. What is the impact of the waste that is being generated? So there is limited awareness. So lack of public consciousness is not there, or be it from the point of view of the authorities, government, etc. So that is not there. Then within the government also there are multiple agencies that are dealing with the issue of solid waste. So there is civic agencies, local waste collection groups. So because of that, there is lack of coordination. We need to improve this. Then lastly, public attitudes are also a major barrier. Why should we do this? Why should we do that? All those things. So what measures can be taken up? So first of all, we have to augment the waste management strategies. So which is already there, we need to improve that. We have to emphasize on the right collection and segregation practices. Now, when we say segregation, that means dry waste, wet waste, bio waste, e-waste. So segregation should take place. That will ease recycling also. Okay. Next is we have to focus on the rules of 3 R's, that is reduce, reuse, recycle. Right? So this has to be emphasized. Besides, we have to look at the waste to wealth concept. So waste to energy conservation, energy conversion, use of plastics in making road, use of green waste as fertilizers, compost, natural compost. So this has to be emphasized, and everything has a market value. We have to realize this. So recycling. Okay. Then monitoring has to be done of the various initiatives that are there. So monitoring at ground level by civic agencies, awareness campaigns on lines of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Then we already have the solid waste management rules. We need to give it a proper legislative backing. So we need that. We need participation of self-help groups, so NGOs, right? So NGOs should be there. Then there is always a possibility of startups, people who are looking at economic opportunities within that waste management, getting waste management contracts from the government, recycling contracts, or selling waste and converting it into something of use. So anything, right? So we need that. We need innovative solutions for waste management. And when it comes to public attitude, it is about creating awareness. It is about sensitizing. So yeah, so that we have already done over here. Communication campaigns should be there. Okay, then you have to conclude again talking about the urgency of this situation. So some closure statement has to be there. Now coming on to the question, next question, what are the key features of the National Clean Area Program initiated by the Government of India? So this is very, very simple. All we have to do is read the PIB on National Clean Air Program and organize that and write it. So this is the PIB and I'll share the link with you. Yeah, this is the overall thing. And I'm not doing this. We will just cover it from here. So all we have to do is elaborate this. In fact, I actually did this when it came for the first time in the newspaper. So National Clean Air Program is to do with checking of the pollution. It strives to reduce pollution by 30% by 2024. So it sets targets yearly, annual, midterm, and long-term targets for waste management. For this, it emphasizes for pollution control. It focuses on capacity building by setting up 1, 2, 3, 4 these things, so that it does. And this is supported by international support agencies like World Bank, German Development Agency, etc. All right, so this has to be done. You can also start your answer by talking about the increased pollution problem and then contextual statement talking as to why the NCAP was there and then state the features. So here is the detailed thing. You can refer to this over here. So I'll share the link with you on the comment section. Next article is about environmental impact assessment. So EIA studies are increasingly undertaken before the project is being cleared by the government. So there is a regulation under the Environment Protection Act. By the way, this is also being updated. So this is an important theme. So, any project that is there, so that has to go via the environment impact assessment. That is what will be the impact of that project on the local environment. So that, increasingly be undertaken. So you have to elaborate this. You have to start your answer by talking about what is the EIA and briefly elaborate upon this. Next, we will talk about the environmental impact of hydroelectric projects, especially in Himalayas. So I refer to this article over here. I'll share the link. Now this theme, you look at this. It says, are EIA studies sufficient for projected hydropower development in the Indian Himalayan region? So let's first cover what is this environment impact assessment. So it is the assessment of the environmental consequences of a planned policy program or actual projects prior to the decision to move forward with the proposed action. So this is your definition, and you can say that this is compulsory. It is a statutory requirement under the Environment Protection Act 1986. Right. So this is from the same article that I was talking about. So we get this. Yeah. So this is the issue of the environment impact assessment. So what all things take place while things. First thing is screening and scoping. Then is assessment of the risk, mitigation measures, what measures should be taken if something happens, decision making and monitoring. And in the entire process, there should be stakeholder engagement. And who all are the stakeholders? The people who are commissioning the project, the government, and naturally not to forget the people who reside over there. So people are also getting affected. Sadly, with the environment impact assessment, the views of the locals are somewhere it is overlooked. And that is the shortcoming. So this again could be a theme about the shortcomings of the environment impact assessment framework. Okay. So let's come to this. So it's saying from the are these studies sufficient? So obviously it is saying it is not important. I mean, it is not sufficient. That is what it is saying. And why it is saying is, it says that in Himalayas, naturally Himalayas are mountains and there are a series of mountains. And dams, as you know, they collect water. Then the water flows downstream. So when it flows downstream, the turbine moves with the flow of the water. So again, you can have a dam over here, then you can have a dam over here, then you can have a dam over here. So that can take place. So there is a series of dams that can be created. So we should not focus, what this article is saying, that we should not focus on a particular hydel project. like this project, this project, this project. We should take it as a complete holistic view should be taken over here as to what will be the overall impact of that project. So it should not be a standalone exercise. And this is very, very important because the Himalayas are eco-sensitive region. And we are having a lot of disasters, issues of flash floods, issues of dams collapsing, loss of life, the impact because of the blocking of the water, right? So there are a lot of issues that are there with reference to Himalayas. And so from that point of view, this is important. Okay, now how will it impact the hydel project over here? So naturally, this is, let's say this is the water area. So this is surrounded by the mountains over here. Earlier it used to be. Now this structure was created and this valley is then flooded with water. The flow of the water is stopped. When it is required, the water flows. Okay. Now naturally there would be people who would be living over here in the low-lying areas. Some people would be cultivating. So they have been asked to be displaced. Please, we want water over here for the people downstream, so you have to sacrifice your land. So they are displaced. The forests in which they lived, it's taken away. Mishmi tribes in Arunachal Pradesh have been protesting, and a case study was asked on this. Fine. So this is one aspect, and naturally it will lead to protest. Right? It will lead to protest. Naturally, they will protest about it. Now, because of the blocking, it will lead to the problems of sedimentation. It will affect the flow of the water. So it will affect the freshwater fishes, the fisheries in this sector, because it is affecting the flow of the water. There are fishes that are flowing with the current and against the current. Then, apart from forest, it is causing loss of downstream aquifers because water is being stored for most of the time. So it's not allowing the water to be stored at the downstream areas in the aquifers, so groundwater. Then competition between respective states or respective regions, so upstream, downstream. So there is a transboundary water competition, and naturally this is because it will affect the livelihood of others. Right, loss of livelihood because water is required for agriculture, water is required for fisheries, number of activities. So these are certain concerns over here. Now coming on to the next question, explain the factors. Now both questions that we're going to do are from GS1 point of view, and the emphasis is on geography, core geography. So this is a past year question. It's been a time that ocean currents has not been asked, so we expect a question. So ocean currents. And besides that, let me add something more. So when I was doing this, what came to my mind was El Nino. So El Nino and its impact on the environment. So that is a theme that you should work. And these years we're having the La Nina. And La Nina has been attributed to the heat waves, right? So these are again topics so we have to focus. That will take up later. Okay. Yeah, so this is very, very simple. It's straightforward. Explain the factors responsible for the origin of the ocean currents. Simple. So causes of the ocean currents. How do they influence the regional climates, fishing and navigation? These are typically 150-word type of questions. Now it's very simple. First of all, you will tell what are ocean currents. So you will define it. Then you can name some currents, and then you can give out the factors responsible, and then next heading would be its impact on climate, fishing and navigation. Can be 250 also, and now I see. Okay, right, so these are some currents that are there. You can see this. You've cleared pre, you expected to know this. Okay, so this is the definition of ocean currents. They are continuous, predictable and directional movement of sea water. And when I say movement, it is the horizontal movement. So there are two directions in which the ocean water moves. So one is the horizontal movement and vertical movement. The denser water going down, lighter water coming upwards. So upwelling and downwelling. Now, what are the causes? The planetary winds. There are wind systems. So wind systems, when the winds flow, they push the water. So the water flows in a particular pattern. When we have the seasonal reversal of winds, we also find the reversal of the oceanic currents, which is unique of the Indian subcontinent region, the Indian Ocean region. Okay, so planetary winds. Then difference of density and salinity. So as I said, the denser water, naturally there is density, and density means heavier water according to per volume, so heavier water, and salinity again means having more salt. Now thing is, when there is more salt in water, naturally that water would be denser. Oceanic water is denser than the fresh water. So when the dense water sinks, the fresh water, when the dense water sinks, so the lighter water comes and fills in that place. So that leads to the horizontal movement. The water overall, the water comes down, dense water comes down, there is an immediate vacuum, and that allows for the water from the other direction. So that leads to the horizontal movement. The rotation of the Earth, the Coriolis force, so that is also responsible. Then the shape of the coastline, and also the frictional force, the movement of water through the oceans is slowed by the friction, right? So that is also there. Then what is the impact? Now here it will be best if you can just give the examples rather than just explaining too much. Just give out the examples. So in regional climate, we have the example of the North Atlantic drift. So let's look at this. So you see on the map, this is UK. So North Atlantic drift. So that allows for the warmer climate. So this is the warm current. So warmer current over here, but in the same place you find ice. So cold current is there. So same latitude, it should have been colder over here also, but in the here you see warmer climate. Okay, so this is there. Then the hot climate of Peru is cooled by the cold Peru current. Then we also find that when there is a cold, the regions that are with the cold current, they tend to have desert areas, because cold current is also high pressure areas. So the carrying capacity, or the air moisture carrying capacity comes down because of that. So typically areas along the cold current are having deserts. So Kalahari Desert in the tropics hardly experiences rainfall due to cold peninsular current. Yeah. Then from the point of view of navigation, so one lot common thing is common sense say that the ocean currents, when the water flows, your ship will also move in that direction. That was the traditional way of movement, sea navigation during the pre-industrial revolution phase. So that, and you would not like to move against the current. So that is also there. So the navigator should be mindful of the oceanic patterns, currents. So that is very, very important. Then warm currents help navigation by melting the dangerous icebergs. Remember Titanic hit by the iceberg? It hit the iceberg. So melting would enable ease the navigation. Then when the warm current and the cold current meet, it leads to a foggy climate. It may be prone to collisions. Ships may be prone to collisions because of that. Right, so there are certain issues with navigation. Then where hot and cold currents meet, these are very, very good for fishing activities. So Newfoundland on the eastern coast of North America, so which is one of the major fishing centers of the world. Okay, I think I've missed out on the heat wave. So 1 second. Fine, so we'll take up fine, let's do it here itself. We have the question. So explain the reasons for the intensified heat wave witnessed in the early part of this year. I wanted to discuss from geography perspective. I didn't want to focus so much on the disaster management side of things. I think we discussed it also sometime back. Now, when it says there's something that was witnessed recently, So your introduction should tell us about this event, so cold winter and sudden emergence of the heat wave. Then explain what is a heat wave. Intensive temperature above normal, so 4.5 to 5 degrees Celsius above normal is declared as a heat wave. And any temperature above 45 degrees Celsius is again a heat wave. Okay, so this was witnessed. Now, what are the reasons responsible for it? Now, from geography point of view, one it says is because of the prevalence of the La Nina, very strong La Nina, there has been a distortion in the planetary wind system. So, one is that we are not having this western disturbance over here. Then there is this sub jet streams that are flowing, which are, which are acting like a ridge. Ridge means like a mountain. So it is like a high pressure area which is stopping the flow of water, flow of winds, which may have rains, which may rain bearing winds. So that is being stopped. So that would have led to the soothing of the overall climate. So that is a predominant geographical argument over here. Besides this, we also have generic points like the issue of climate change. So climate change is there, the heat island effect, then the water stress, scarcity of water. So these are also worsening the already bad situation. Now, if we talk from the point of view of disaster mitigation, naturally, if heat wave is there, what should be done? When heat wave is there, the emphasis has to be done. If the environment outside is cold, hot, then people have to be put in colder situation. There will be scarcity of water. There will be scarcity of water. So water bank should be there. Water conservation has to be emphasized upon. We have to take short-term measures, making the water available. Right, so that, and we have to take the long-term measures. India cooling action plan should be there, providing for the air conditioning and facilities. So cooling environment should be there. Right. So these are certain things that needs to be done. Okay, so this primarily concludes the session. So thank you for streaming in to our channel IS Primers with me, Shubhashish. Bye bye, take care, and all the best.